Do any of these sound familiar? Your child doesn't stop moving, like their body won't even let them be still. They use both hands randomly, like maybe switching mid-task. Or they seem to be stuck constantly in fight or flight, or anxious and on edge all the time. These aren't random behaviors. These are signs of retained primitive reflexes, or infant reflexes that never turned off and are now controlling your child's body. After 20 years as an occupational therapist working with complex autism, I can tell you, these reflexes are the hidden barrier making everything for your child harder. In the next 10 minutes, I'm breaking down what primitive reflexes are, the 5 most common ones that I see affecting autistic children, and specific exercises that can help to integrate them so that your child can finally move with intention instead of being controlled by these automatic responses. Now, pay attention to the 5th reflex, because I will talk about what may be the answer to one of the most challenging things for you as a parent. So stay tuned for that. Let's dive in. Hi, I'm Dr. Dana Johnson. I'm an occupational therapist with a PhD in child mental health and development, and I help parents of complex autistic children understand what's really driving their child's challenges. Okay, so what are primitive reflexes? Well, they are automatic motor responses that are present at birth, and they're designed to help us for survival as we are growing. So in infancy, we don't have intentional movement. We're literally on this survival mode. Now, these reflexes should integrate or turn off by 6 to 12 months. Sometimes it might be up to 2 years. And integration allows the voluntary movement and higher brain development. So that's when we start to see the infant or toddler start to move on their own. They now have intention behind their action. However, when they're retained, this is when they interfere with development. So why don't reflexes integrate in autism? Well, there are neurological differences in brain development among those with autism, and things like stress during pregnancy or birth or even a C-section can prevent reflexes from integrating. Early developmental trauma or even illness can prevent that as well, and lack of movement patterns in infancy. So sometimes some of my clients, parents, when they're filling out intake, they'll say things like, they didn't like tummy time, or they skipped the crawling phase. Now, these are flags to me that there may be some reflexes that are still retained or haven't turned off that are affecting the movement or the intentional movement of the individual. And of course, sensory processing differences. And you'll see how reflexes and sensory processing go hand in hand. Okay, so what are the 5 most common retained reflexes that I see in my clients? Well, number 1 is the Moro reflex, or fear paralysis is what it's called. And that's when you see in an infant, they just kind of startle. Well, that's important because it's getting the body ready to either react to something that may not be good. Now, what I see in my clients is heightened anxiety or a hypersensitivity to sound and light. Sometimes I see a lot of emotional dysregulation or constantly being in fight, flight, or freeze. In fact, it's in overdrive. Poor impulse control and difficulty inhibiting their body. So some of these things you may see in your child. Now, here is one exercise that I often recommend for my clients if I see that this Moro reflex is still present. Let's take a look. Okay, so for this exercise, this is going to help integrate the Moro reflex. All we need for this is a chair without any arms. So the starting position for this exercise is called the starfish, is where we're going to cross. In this case, I'm crossing my right hand over top of my left, or my right arm over my left arm, and then I'm going to take my right leg and cross it over my left leg, and then I'm going to almost huddle into a ball as best I can. And then I'm going to open my whole body up, and then I'm going to go the opposite. So now my left hand and left leg are going over top of my arm and my leg, and then I'm going to open and then go back where my right arm and right leg are over top. Open and down, and open and down. Now remember, this is a little bit more complicated and can be very challenging. So please remember to coach your child's body through the whole process. You can help them with their arms and their legs at first, because that can be really complicated and challenging, especially with the crossing over. So don't hesitate to coach their body and then practice. Start with maybe 2 or 3 and then build up from there. The second common reflex that I see in my clients is the asymmetrical tonic neck reflex, or ATNR. And what it is when you're observing an infant and they turn their head to the side, the arm on that side that their head is turned to will extend. So some of the things that I see in my clients is difficulty crossing midline. So often parents will say to me, they haven't chosen a dominant side yet, or a dominant hand. They can't cross over their body midline. And so they'll tend to do whatever on the right with the right hand and whatever on the left with the left hand. So they switch over. That could be a sign of ATNR that is still present. Visual tracking issues, coordination problems, challenges with bilateral tasks. What that means is that, for example, I have clients where they are working on utensil use and they'll use the utensils, except that they won't stabilize the bowl or the plate with the opposite hand. And so then the plate or the bowl is moving around the table. So that is a challenge with a bilateral task. So let's take a look at this video in terms of home exercises that I recommend for my clients with this reflex still present. Okay, so with this exercise, we are working on the ATNR reflex. Now, as you can see, I have painter's tape X's on either side of my body, and I have about a 5-pound weighted medicine ball. Now remember, we have to coach the body with this, so break each step down. The first step is turn your head and get your eyes on the X. Bring the ball and tap and forward. Turn your head, look your eyes on the X, turn and tap. Tap. Turn, 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 look, tap, and forward. Turn, 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 look, tap, and forward. Now you can do between 5 and 8 on each side, and it's really important that you look first, then tap. So we're getting that crossing the midline, and we're not turning our whole body to tap, okay? So the feet need to stay still. Okay, third, the symmetrical tonic neck reflex. Why do these names all have to be so long? Or the STNR. So what this looks like is that when the infant's head looks up, the legs will flex and the arms will extend. When the head goes down, the arms flex and the legs extend. So it's the opposite. Now, what do I see in my clients that still have this reflex that's essentially retained, or they haven't lost it yet? I see low muscle tone, poor posture. They can't keep their body up when they're sitting in a chair. I also see visual tracking issues, so vision's coming into play even more. Now let's take a look at these 2 exercises that can help your child integrate this reflex. Okay, so this exercise is to integrate the STNR reflex, and it's called the cat-cow stretch. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our hands and knees on the ground, and we want to lift our chin up to bring our eyes up, and at the same time we're going to arch our back. And then from there, we're going to bring our chin down and we're going to round our back. And we bring our chin up and arch our back and bring our chin down and round our back. Now, if this one's a little bit challenging, too challenging for your child, what we can do is also what we call the cat stretch. So that means we're going to bring our hips down to rest on our ankles, but then we're going to bring our head and chin down and keep our hands here right where they are in the starting position and stretch. And then we're going to come up and then bring our eyes and our chin up and then come back down and rest. And then come up. Okay, so again, these exercises take a lot of practice and consistency, and don't forget to motor coach. Okay. Number 4, the tonic labyrinthine reflex, or TLR. Now, as infants start to build their head and neck control, and as they start to roll, that's when this reflex is integrated. So it has to do also with the vestibular sense. So if your child struggles with balance or even motion sickness, spatial awareness, toe walking, these are things I see in my clients, difficulty judging distance. Here's another one for vision. Poor eye motor skills and weak muscles. These are things that will possibly indicate that they still have this reflex present, and that is impacting their ability to intentionally move their body. So let's check out this video on some exercises that you can do at home to help integrate this reflex. Okay, so this exercise is for the TLR reflex integration. So as you can see, I have an X with painter's tape closer to the bottom, just in between my legs, and then one that's up above my head. I also again have the 5-pound weighted medicine ball. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to invert my head. So I'm going to bend over, tap the X, and then go up and make sure I'm moving my head and my eyes up to find the other X. And I'm going to continue to do down and up and down and up for about 5 to 8 repetitions. Now remember, we also have to coach the body through this entire exercise. And if your child at any point is uncomfortable because of the inversion of their head, they may be very sensitive to that vestibular input, then just build up to 5 to 8. Okay, number 5. Now, if you remember at the introduction, I said this is one that you need to pay attention to because this might be the key to something that you're struggling with. So this is the spinal galant reflex. Now, this is when, if you've done this with an infant, that when you touch the lower back, it causes hip rotation. So what I see in my clients is that they tend to fidget a lot. They need to move, and this is different than moving their body, their whole body. This is like if they're sitting, they're just constantly moving. Attention issues. Now this is tricky because my clients with non-speaking autism who have much more complex bodies, they may be attending when we don't think they do. So take this one with a grain of salt. They can't tolerate waistbands or tags or food textures. And then listen to this, bedwetting. So if your child is over the age of 5, this reflex may be impacting their ability to stay dry at night because the stimulation of the sheets on their back or the PJs or pajamas on the individual's back causes that involuntary hip wiggling. So essentially hip rotation. And then with that, the bladder releases. Now, when you're an infant, that happens. That's just what happens with infants. But when you're 5 or older, that's what's happening. And they have absolutely no control over it. Here's an exercise that I have. Let's check out this video. But also, if you're struggling with bedwetting, make sure you get to a professional so that they can help you with this particular challenge. Let's take a look at this video now. Okay, so here is our exercise for the spinal galant reflex integration. So we're going to start with our legs together, arms at the side, and we are going to do what we call a snow angel. So we're going to go up, bring our arms and legs up, and then come back down. Bring our arms up, our legs out, and then come back down. And again, we can do about 5 to 8 of those, and be sure to coach your child's body through the entire process. Okay, so here's what you now know. Primitive reflexes are infant responses that should disappear by age 1 or at most age 2. But when they're retained, which is common in autism, they hijack your child's nervous system and make everything harder. These affect intentional movement, emotional regulation, sensory processing, and learning. They're foundational barriers, but they can be integrated through specific exercises and consistent movement patterns over time. So here's what I want you to do right now. Download my free Primitive Reflex Integration Guide. It has all of the 6 reflexes with visuals of the integration exercises that we talked about today. That link is in the description. And subscribe for weekly strategies that address the root causes in complex autism. And comment below. Have you done reflex integration work with your child? Let me know what worked and what didn't. What were some of those struggles? Integration takes consistent work, but it does work. I've seen it in so many of my clients. Now remember, you can implement these exercises into your daily exercise routine with your child. You don't have to add a whole new workout. Adding them at the end of your exercise session is a great place to start. You will see the progress. Thank you. I will see you on the next video.